The Reykjanes Peninsula was a place that seemed caught between worlds. To the west, the Atlantic beat itself against black cliffs, sending salt spray high into the air. To the east, the land steamed from vents and fissures, breathing warmth into the cold. In between, stretched a wide field of ancient lava rocks, jagged, weathered, and scattered, like the bones of a giant that had collapsed here centuries ago. Evelyn Hayes adjusted her wool cap against the wind and walked slowly through the field. Her boots crunched on loose gravel. She carried a worn leather notebook in one hand, a compact camera around her neck, and a measuring tape clipped to her jacket. This was her last week in Iceland, the final stage of her small research grant to document rune markings on volcanic stones. Most of the stones were ordinary, their surfaces rough and pitted, dressed in green moss and pale lichen. But here and there, she found the faint cuts of runes, straight lines, angled branches marks that might have been carved by human hands 1,000 years ago. The light was everything. At the right angle, a carving revealed itself. At the wrong one, it vanished into shadow. She was tracing a shallow rune with her glove when she noticed it. A boulder larger than the others, almost twice her height, sat apart from the rest. One side was curved smooth, as though a giant hand had polished it. Across its face ran a single deep carving, a line curving into a shape she could not immediately place. The late afternoon sun caught it at just the right angle, making it glow faintly gold. She stepped closer, resting her hand on the cool surface. The stone was silent for a moment. Then, "Do you hear me?" Evelyn jerked back, heart hammering. The words were clear, low, and close. She spun around, expecting to see someone behind her, but the field was empty. Only the wind moved between the stones, carrying the far-off hiss of steam vents. Her breath misted in the cold air. She laughed once softly, a nervous sound. "Just the wind," she told herself. Still curiosity pulled her forward again. She laid her hand against the carving. "Do you hear me?" the voice said again. This time she knew the sound came from the stone itself. She crouched slightly, her palm flat on the surface. "Who is this?" she asked before she could stop herself. "A prisoner," the voice replied, deep and steady. "Bound in stone for longer than you can imagine." Evelyn tried to think of a logical explanation, air moving through cracks, an echo from the cliffs, even her own imagination. But her pulse told her this was real. How are you speaking to me?" "My spirit is trapped within this rock," the voice said. "Once I walked under the open sky. Now I stand here silent to all but those who choose to listen." There was a long pause. Evelyn felt the weight of the sky above her, the stillness of the stones all around. "What are you?" she asked at last. "I was called Lior," the stone replied. "I am or was a light elf. Long ago my kind guarded the passages between this world and ours. I swore an oath to keep a certain way through the lava fields, hidden from humankind." His voice deepened, shaded with something like regret. "One winter a storm came. A human woman wandered into the fields lost and near death. She called out. I broke my vow and led her to safety. She lived. I remained here." "Punishment," Evelyn murmured. "Yes, my people took my heart, the source of my life, and hid it in the crater of an old volcano now cold. Without it I am bound to this shape. If it is returned to me, the curse will break." Evelyn stood in silence. She had read dozens of Icelandic folk tales during her research, stories of hidden folk and strange bargains. This could have been one of them, and yet the voice carried something she could not dismiss, not threat, not pleading, but a loneliness so deep it seemed to echo in her own bones. "I am not promising anything," she said carefully. "I ask for nothing but the chance to be seen," Lior replied. That night in her rented room, Evelyn could not sleep. The voice stayed in her head. She found herself searching old geological maps of the peninsula, tracing possible locations of dormant craters. By morning, she had a route marked out. The road inland wound past steaming pools, ridges of black rock and sudden stretches of moss that looked soft but hid sharp stone beneath. Evelyn drove a rented jeep, its tires crunching over gravel, her backpack in the passenger seat. The volcano she saw at Eldhol, the fire hill, was a low, broad shape on the horizon, its slopes streaked with ash and time. No tourists came here. There was no signpost, no marked trail. She parked where the road ended and began the climb. The wind pushed at her back, carrying a fine grit that stung her cheeks. She moved slowly, scanning the ground for loose rock. The higher she went, the more the landscape seemed stripped of color, only black and gray, with the occasional flash of green moss clinging to the lee of a stone. Halfway up, she stopped to drink water. She could almost hear Lior's voice in her mind, faint but insistent, guiding her toward the crater. At the rim, the wind dropped suddenly. The crater floor lay in shadow, a shallow bowl of cooled lava. In the center, nestled among shards of black rock, lay a single pale stone, smooth and shaped like a heart. She knelt and picked it up. Warmth bloomed in her hands, spreading up her arms. "You have found it," Lior's voice said, and this time it was not in her ears, but in her chest, as if the words had come from her own heartbeat. The return to the lava field felt shorter, though she knew it was hours. The sun was already lowering, the light deepening into gold. Lior's stone stood as it had before, casting a long shadow across the moss. Evelyn knelt at the base and placed the pale heart against the carving. The ground trembled under her knees. A crack split the boulder, slow and deliberate, and from within came a glow like the heart of a fire. It grew brighter until she had to shield her eyes. When the light faded, the boulder was gone. In its place stood a man, tall, his hair silver as frost, his eyes lit from within. His presence was quiet like the deep air before snow. "You have given me back my life," Lior said. Evelyn's breath caught. She had expected joy, but there was something else in his face, a kind of resignation. "What happens now?" she asked. "I will return to my people," he said. "They may not welcome me, but the choice was yours to make, and I am free." "You could stay," she said. "Staying would bind me again. Freedom is walking away even from what we wish to keep." He stepped back. Light gathered around him, almost swallowing him, until she could no longer see his features. Then it was gone, and so was he. The field was silent. The place where the boulder had stood was bare, only a single wildflower, blooming from the dark soil. Evelyn touched its petals. The wind whispered through the stones. She could almost imagine it was his voice saying, "Thank you." When she returned to her team, she told no one the full truth. They would have laughed or worse, pitied her. The boulder was gone from the site records, and no one believed it had ever been there. But in her notebook, pressed between 2 pages of rune sketches, lay a single pale petal. She kept it not as proof no one else would accept it, but as a reminder. Some stones do speak, and sometimes if you choose to listen, you can set them free.